Welcome back to the channel. Now we're bringing you another episode for the Q&A series, and in this video we're going to be talking about things we would have done differently. Now it's not necessarily about the process moving to Bulgaria, because in our previous video we talked about the bad experience with a courier, but...
Yeah, so potentially we would have done that differently, but we would never have known.
Yeah. So we actually had to think quite hard with this one, and it's going to be things we want to discuss with renovating the property.
Yeah, we really had to think about it, and the only things we would have done differently is, renovating.
Renovate projects and things like that.
But that is purely because we were total novices and we honestly had no idea what we was doing, so everything was just try and see how it goes.
Trial and error, yeah. Some things could have saved money and some things could have saved
time,
repetitive jobs. So the first one on the list is windows, and we've put this one on it because you know from previous videos I've gone in to explain we have our bedroom, the bathroom and the extension windows double glazed, but that's it.
Yeah, and that was just to save costs at the time. We didn't know how much it was going to cost, and we just wanted to get the main priority windows in, the rooms we were going to use, and just wait until a later date to get the rest in.
But that resulted in us being limited to what rooms we could use in the house throughout winter, because some people might hunker down and kind of hermit in one room, which is completely fine. We've almost done that ourselves, but we don't want to limit ourselves because we have the bedroom and we have the life area and living down in the extension, but we have the small rooms where we can't have a sit down relaxed space apart from the bedroom because of the drafts.
They're pretty much not usable through winter. We had a storm at some point last year, didn't we? And the rain was coming like horizontally. And it came straight through one of the old wooden windows, and we walked into the room and there was a big puddle in the middle of the floor, and we couldn't figure out. We were looking up at the roof thinking there must be a leak, and it was just coming in through the windows. So
we would have bitten the bullet at the beginning and done the whole lot, to be honest. That's one of the things we not really regret, but definitely would have done differently. The next one is rendering outside.
So on the extension, again, total novices, really don't have a clue how to do any of this stuff, and we're just giving it a go. So we bought the material that we knew was for rendering, we bought the insulation, and we really struggled with it actually, didn't we?
Yeah, because you've seen in the back alley where we've got the white render, and it was proving quite hard because we were missing key
elements of the
process.
Yeah. So just getting the material onto the insulation was really, really difficult, and we spent days and days and days just trying to get it to stick. But yeah, we realised that we were missing some crucial parts of the process, like the
mesh netting
and the scratch coat. And it's not really too big an issue. It potentially is something we're going to have to redo or patch up in the future. So it's something, if we had known about and researched properly, then we could have prevented a little bit of work.
Yeah, repair, maintenance work.
Yeah.
And the mesh is not only good for the scratch coating to help bind the material to the insulation, but it also helps prevent movement and cracking. So we struggled with the back alley. When we came onto the street side, which is like the bathroom wall, the gable end wall of the lean-to where the two windows are, we actually used mesh on that, and we got it done in like a few hours. Because of how easy it is to spread it, because it's got something to grip to.
Bind to, yeah.
So our first working holiday, I think, was it? Or our first major job when we got here in July was concreting the floor.
Yeah, when we were doing the garage conversion, so the entire length of the conversion was 8 meters, 8.5 meters by about 3.5 meters. So our first major job was to get that floor cemented. And honestly, we feel as though there was too many cooks. There was about 9 or 10 of us all working on this job because it was a big scale job. And it's the first time we'd ever done a concrete floor.
Concrete pad, yeah. So it wasn't the labour that was hard, but it was the communication, wasn't it?
Yeah, when we now do concrete pads or floors between us, we work at a much slower pace and we get it right. And I normally do the laying,
the spreading and the levelling out, yeah.
Because I'm much more pedantic. And you will do the mixing, and you won't mix too much so that I can't keep up with the levelling off.
Yeah.
So it takes much longer, but the finished product is much better.
Yeah, a lot more higher quality. So when you've got a team of 8 or 9 people, everyone's wanting to spread, everyone's wanting to mix, and when there isn't a communication with, well, hold on, like we've only just levelled this, we're not ready for the next batch yet.
It'd be like one batch after another, and we're having to work with concrete that is starting to go off.
Yeah.
And again, we were all novices.
It proved to be not very. We weren't very happy with the final product. So obviously, with the extension now, you've seen how we have carpets and rugs down on top of the concrete that we're referring to. And it's going to prove quite difficult to install any future flooring.
We're going to have to do a lot of building up on top of the existing floor. We've had a lot of cracking, a lot of movement.
It's just not very level, it's not very good, to be honest.
And I think that's another thing that for floors, concrete floors, I would always, now, having done some research, opt for using lime in the concrete mix. And that's because lime doesn't prevent cracking, but it creates a much stronger bond between the concrete and the lime. So any cracks that do form will join back together. So it gives the concrete a little bit of flexibility.
Yeah.
So that's the case. I would use that kind of concrete everywhere.
Now that we've learned the benefits of it.
Yeah, because we've struggled a lot with cracking concrete.
Yeah. So if you've seen some of our really early house tour videos when we started doing the major works of the extension and the roof's on, and we're kind of going towards a summer house, and you saw that we actually dug out probably about 2 ton worth of flooring to bring the new concrete level that we've just referred to straight down into the summer house. That was the original plan, to just dig out all the floor and keep it all on one level, like on the downstairs. But it actually resulted in being a lot more
labour intensive than we thought.
Yeah, so before we got too carried away, we actually backfilled everything that we dug out. Probably 3 months later, put it all back in
and put a step in instead.
Yeah, and added an extra step to the cellar, and we decided to change that summer house door to the traditional wooden frame window.
We still have to dig out the floor to an extent because the floors kind of they go in steps through the summer house, don't they? So in the kitchen, for example, the part that we had backfilled, we actually had to dig out the next room along a little bit.
Yeah, not so much.
Yeah.
And that another reason as well is because the standard appliances and worktop heights and cabinets, they're always higher or taller than where the original windows are of the building. So all the worktops and windowsills were going to be covered by the appliance.
Yes, so that's why we dropped
the floor. Yeah. So the point of that one is that we are notorious for repeating jobs.
We tend to do things twice, if not 3 times. And
it's usually not the easy jobs either.
Yeah, it's not like just changing your curtains or something simple.
Yeah.
It's always the jobs where it's like we worked our asses off.
Yeah.
And now we have to redo it.
Yeah. So, on relation to the summer house, you again in the previous videos in one of our projects and restoration playlist, we actually have the video of us making a huge hole in the end of the summer house, which is currently the back end wall of the kitchen.
Yeah, it was one of the very first holidays that we came on, and I think we were just overexcited. We'd already done a lot of demolition that holiday, and it was like, okay, what else can we do? What else can we do?
So even though the layout of the kitchen has kind of been like flipped opposite, so the kitchen's closer to the main house instead of being at the end.
We still want to have a what do we call it? What do we normally call it?
Buttress.
A buttress wall. So we still want to have a hole in that wall, essentially. But it's just the stage of work. Like, we now know, having experienced 2 years of renovating, that we would have left that closed until we got to that point.
Yeah.
Because it's only just now, like this year, that we're intending on putting that buttress wall in properly.
And being able to use the rest of the house or just take it down as we plan. So having the hole in the side of the house, even though it was to the over 2/3 of the summer house, those are where the mud brick structures are. So
those are kind of exposed to the elements a lot more, and so having that hole through to the summer house has exposed the part of the house that we're living in to the elements.
Yeah, and anything that wants to move in, basically. So coming back to the extension, and there isn't a lot of things we would have done differently apart from the floor. We're happy with the roof, but a part of the roof is the Velux above the bath. And when we ordered the Velux, we were pretty excited, weren't we?
Yeah, we'd heard a lot of horror stories, like these things are notorious for leaking, for damaging the roof and things like that, and we just thought if we install it properly, we won't come across these problems. And
so it arrived
with
a load of other materials, and we were doing the joists and marking out above the bath where it was going to go.
And for some reason the instruction manual went out the window.
Yeah.
And I always said, if you want to follow a recipe of a cake, but you don't look at the ingredients, then don't be surprised when your cake doesn't turn out looking like the image on the recipe.
Yeah.
And basically that's how our Velux turned out.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of problems with it. We've actually already taken it out once and tried to fix it.
Last summer, yeah.
And we're going to have to do it again, because anytime we have intense rainfall...
We're talking of super torrential summer storms.
Yeah, we have a shower above the bath.
Above the bath, yeah. It likes to come in and give us a little bit of a rainforest effect. So obviously that comes with its own impact, because it's going against the plasterboard in the cove of the Velux, so there's going to be issues to repair that as well. So that's on the list for this summer. Get it out, third time lucky, get it back in and do it properly. And it's down to the vapor barrier, how we've met it, and some of the flashing isn't installed properly either.
No, it's down to the height, because the flashing couldn't sit on top of the tiles. So all the water is going underneath and then dripping through. Yeah.
So that's something we definitely would have done differently, because that's just going to be a pain in the ass until we get around to fixing it, really. So that brings us on to the next topic, is obviously with the plasterboard around all of the extension, mainly the ceiling, the walls went pretty well, didn't they?
The thing is with it is that I realised much later down the line that if we had done a good job with the joints of the plasterboard,
putting them up, yeah,
then we could have quite easily have just painted the walls and be done with it. But again, we didn't know what we was doing,
and we were kind of time constrained as well. It's like, okay, we're not necessarily intending to take shortcuts, but we're just blasting through it, boom, 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 and then that had a result of...
And we just don't know the hints and tricks and things that other people would do. Like, for example, wet sanding. So before the joint compound goes off, you can wet sand it so it smooths it down, so it makes dry sanding much easier. I spent months and months and months sanding down gone off compound.
Adhesive,
and it just got to a point where I was like, this will do, we'll just plaster all over it. Which is fine, we can still plaster the whole thing, but it's just, we could have skipped that step.
Yeah, especially for like, on some of the partition walls where you're talking a full sheet and then another full sheet with one cut, that would have been a lot of plaster to save if we had just made the tape, which we didn't use on the seams.
We didn't use the tape, so the seams are all starting to crack. So that is something we're going to have to go back over and do. But like you said, it was at a time where we were very much against the clock, and it was just okay, we're doing this, let's do it as quickly and as efficiently as possible.
As best we know at this time to do as well.
Yeah, it's only as we look back that we're like, okay, we could have done that a bit better. Which is fine, that's all we have done since being here is just learn and learn. We never knew these things before trying them out. No.
So we're going to sum it up with kind of a bit of a switcheroo, because we've always said in our videos that we prioritised the bathroom because there was no internal plumbing or drainage or sewage system, which I think a lot of people relate to, especially with the rural houses where they all have external toilets in the garden. So we actually had a bit of a discussion prior to making this video about prioritising the roof and the gutters first if we were to do it all over again.
And maybe
in hand with facilities.
Yeah, because I guess it kind of, the thing with a roof is that you're looking after the structural integrity of the house for years to come, whereas the first thing on anyone's mind that when you move out here isn't necessarily the structural integrity of the house.
I want to be able to go to the toilet in comfort is usually quite high on the list,
but we definitely would have put that much higher on our list, because we've seen the effects of water, of the rain here, and
it literally eats through, like,
it could take down a house in maybe a year.
If
2
years.
There's any weaknesses. Maybe not the main build, but definitely the outbuildings, they come down very easily. Any weaknesses.
Yeah, and the outbuildings, like Anish says, are made out of mud brick, which, if protected from the elements, it'll last another 50 years.
Yeah.
But as soon as the water gets in, it literally carves out the wall, which is what your roof is supported from. So the 2/3 of the summer house, which is made out of mud brick on the back of the kitchen, is basically bringing itself down.
Because we took off a outbuilding where the water would run off much further away from the wall, we took off that outbuilding and there's no guttering. So anytime it rains, and we joke about this all the time, it's taking itself down. The roof is starting to take itself down from the corners.
Yeah, you can see on top of the walls where you'd have like a bit of a mounting beam to screw your joist to. The mounting joist
is starting to slip.
Is slipping off of the top of the wall because of how it's carving it out.
That is a job that we are going to do very, very soon.
Yeah, hopefully this year. Yeah.
But the thing is with the guttering, on a lot of these rural houses are not. A lot of the houses don't have sufficient guttering, or the guttering is very old and doesn't work very well. And that's what we found, especially on our summer house.
Yeah.
We've had to patch
and
make do with whatever we can.
And divert it wherever we can away from the house.
And we struggled through the summer. Every time we got a big summer thunderstorm, we would get flooded outside our back door. And it was just so much water that the ground couldn't soak it up, and that was because of our lack of drainage, our lack of guttering. We had to divert the water away, and right outside of our bedroom we had a downspout that had nothing on the end of it, and we had to get some guttering to divert,
just like an elbow, like a 45-degree elbow, to just send the 2/3 of the house of the collection of the water into the middle of the street, because it was just smack with the wind coming against our wall.
And obviously down into the foundations, and we do have it pointing out into the middle of the street, and a lot of rural houses out here do, all our neighbours do, which isn't very good for the road because it is like Niagara Falls out there when the...
Especially from the top as it comes down,
Ideally, we want to spin that back around into our property and collect all of that water in a rainwater harvesting.
But yeah, it's just, you will find, especially if you're moving out here and starting a similar journey to us, there might not be guttering on all sides of the house. So it's definitely something from first glance. It's okay, the roof looks okay. Yeah,
it could very, very easily go the opposite direction if it's not maintained. You really, really have to keep an eye on the water.
On the water, and where it's pooling and where it's going.
But you do not want that pooling on your foundations.
No
way.
But even if it's not pooling directly, it can also, like if you're not diverting it properly, we see like our neighbours who doesn't actually live there, the property adjacent to where our polytunnel is, he has a patch of his tiles that isn't covering the water, and it's getting between the wall and his external render, and the render is peeling off like wallpaper with the mesh into our garden, and that's getting dramatically different every 2-3 months. We see it changing.
Yeah, and we noticed a couple of tiles on one of his barns had shifted, and ever since then the water has been getting in, and the wall is now going in like an S shape, and the foundations are starting to go. Unfortunately, we can't do anything about that because it doesn't belong to us. It will eventually collapse onto our land, and we will have to just push it back into his.
So we hope this last point has just been a little bit of an eye-opener, really. This is what we would have liked to have invested in, sorting out the roof.
Doing the roof properly. We have a couple of minor leaks, like we've mentioned before, and the guttering, all round the guttering. And on the matter of the roof, I would have it all totally blocked off. You know, what do they call them? Soffits?
Soffits.
Soffits.
Fascias and soffits.
Because our roof space is open to the elements, and we get a lot of creatures up there.
Yeah, we get a lot of tenants with 4 legs trying to move in because they climb up from the summer house, and a lot of the rural properties, especially ours, we only have soffit boards around 3 sides, and the side we need it isn't there.
Yeah, and you've tried to patch it up, haven't you? And you patched it up one day, went out the next, and a piece of wood had been ripped off, so it got back in. They're pine martins, and they are ferocious.
Yeah, they are pretty annoying.
They sound like they're moving furniture up there, and it can be absolutely terrifying.
Yeah. So this is why, hopefully, when finances allow, we're kicking the tenants out upstairs, and we're sorting the roof space out and blocking it all off.
Yeah.
So if you've got this far, thank you very much for watching, and let us know if there's things that you would have done differently, and if you're on a similar journey, we'd love to hear your experience. And thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.
Ja.
Divisioning.
Ciao.